Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue. Live your life, love Christ, do your best to
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue. Live your life, love Christ, do your best to
Speak life.
Hello and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Speak Life podcast. We are so excited to have you with us for another amazing week. I am your host, Minister Phoenix, alongside once again my co-host for the week, David Edwards. Introduce yourself again. Reintroduce yourself to the people, brother.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is David. Good to be here with Minister Phoenix.
Back again.
Yes, sir.
Now, after last week's episode was an amazing episode. I don't care what anyone says. Y'all can say whatever you want. I say it every week for as many episodes as we have. I don't care. Our podcast, we make the rules. Right. But last week, for this week, this episode actually sprung from a conversation we started having after the podcast was over. So we was like, yo, we gotta go back and talk more about this, you know. So I think this week gonna be an interesting week.
Yeah, most def.
I think this week definitely gonna be an interesting week. So first and foremost, shout out to all the listeners, all the subscribers, all you first timers who joined with us this week. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, we're happy to have you. You know, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Just do it. It's like Nike. Just do it. No, this is not a sponsorship for Nike, but no, really though, just click that subscribe button, you know, like, you know, comment to be a part of the conversation. You know, we love those comments. We like being able to really, you know, respond and, you know, stay connected to our audience. You know, shout out to our book, you know, When Three Roads Collide. I know I do a lot of shameless plugs, but, you know, I got to get it in there, you know.
Got to get it, though.
You know, When Three Roads Collide. It's an amazing book. Go check it out. It's on Amazon. It's on, you know, iTunes. It's on Google Books. You know, go check it out. And I see you got on one of the custom shirts popping off. Tell them about the brand, bro.
DavidKing Apparel,
you can't come with the shirt and don't tell them about the brand. Show them the shirt, brother. Show them the...
You got to get it. You got to get it. DavidKing Apparel.
Where can they get that? Tell them where they can get that.
Just hit me up. Hit me up.
We'll leave his information in the details of the episode. You want a shirt? I got mine. You know, it fit nice and good, you know. So, you know, support the brother.
Definitely.
All right. We done with that. We gonna get into it. You know, this week, I'm really excited about this week. You know, I'm kind of scared about this week. But this episode right here, we're gonna talk about the Black experience. Now, to give y'all a little, you know, background story of how this episode popped off. Like I said, it was last week after we were done recording. We just started talking and we were talking about some of the stuff that we were just mentioning during the episode. And, you know, my man D said, yo, you know, some people might think, you know, that because of some of the things that we were saying that, you know, it may be misconstrued on why we said certain things. And then it came up like, yo, depending on what your experience is, you know, it really shifts how you look at certain things, you know. And we just gonna talk about that, you know, because some people think like all Black people experience the exact same things all the time.
Right.
And even though, you know, we may have similar experiences, it's not all the same experience.
Right, absolutely.
So this gonna be interesting, and one of this is the question I really want to start off with, because I think depending on how people get this piece will depend on how they look at certain things. So my first question would be this: you know, when did you realize that, you know, you were Black and like race was a thing?
So I'd probably say around elementary school. Now, interestingly enough, I can't recall many conversations in my home where my parents were like, hey, you're Black. You know, to be quite honest with you, I think it was just one of those things you came to know. And I think that, you know, of course, there's conversations in school at that point about, you know, you have Black History Month. You have all these things that point to celebration of Blackness and Black being beautiful and all these different things. So for me, I think it was probably around elementary school. Around that time was when I realized, like, oh, I'm Black.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, I think I would say that.
That's fair because, like you said, like when coming up, like I don't really have a defining moment where my parents was like, "Hey, listen, you's a black boy, and you gotta watch out for certain things," and like, right. And it was like I never really understood the whole race thing. I never really understood the dynamics of what was happening like in the world with a lot of things. All I knew was, I was just a brown boy, just living in Boston. Like right. There was no real, anything about, race issues or anything like that, but for me, I think the first time I really realized that like race was a thing, like it was like really a thing. Like there was people who actually did not like you if you was like a certain color. Like where I used to live, like in the middle of Roxbury, we had this community center, and there was this lady who worked in the community center, Sam. Shout out to Sam, rest in peace, Sam. Now Sam was this little white lady, right? Yeah. And she would take all these kids from the hood, and we would just go places. Like she would take us skiing. Like we would go roller skate. Like just places you just don't expect to like see like when you growing up in certain areas. And I remember this one particular trip. This is when I realized that race is like a thing. Like I was probably like maybe around 11, 12 years old. And we went to this skating ring. And it was a lot of us. Like, it was like, I swear it was like everyone from the neighborhood was going to we was deep going on this trip, and we went to this skating ring, and I think it might have been like in like Roller World, before Roller World was Roller World in like Saugus, right? Okay. So we're there, we're skating, everyone's skating, and I didn't know how to skate. I was doing more falling than I was skating. But I remember it was like we was there for like a few hours, and then all of a sudden, like the atmosphere just changed, bro. Like when I say it changed, next thing I know, I got my older brother. He's like, "Hey, yo, get your stuff. I'm like, yo, what is happening? Oh, apparently, while we were there, oh Lord, apparently while we were there, someone from either the staff or the people who were there, because we were the only black people there. People just didn't go up there like that. Right. They was like, yeah, they don't know where these little ends came from, but and like there's a 7-year difference between me and my brother and all his friends. So like, young black in America, they was like big mad. They was like, everyone, we just like dipped. Right. And I think that was like the first time like I was like, oh wow, this race thing is actually like a thing. Like before then I was like clueless. Like just didn't know. Yeah. So it's like, yikes.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, I think probably there would be one incident that I can recall where like it became real, right? And I think it was there was one day I was and I can't recall exactly where I was walking, but I could remember hearing what I heard and how it made me feel in the moment. So I was walking down the street and just minding my own business, and this car drives by and two people stick their heads out. And they're like, "You nigger!"
Oh, there it is. It's like,
and back then, I always had my headphones on. My CD player. Shout out to CD players.
They don't know about CD players. They're like, "What? What is that?" That's like a Walkman. You start mentioning Walkman, they're like, "What is a Walkman?"
Right. CD players was my generation. Crazy thing is, I stand there in awe, and I'm like, "Yo, did somebody just call me a nigger?" Yeah. And I think for me at that moment, it made it very real that there are people in the world that have not progressed, right? And it was just a point of where you come to this point of acceptance that the world is not exactly how, for me and from my experiences, how I might have thought it was. Yeah. Right? And a lot of that really dictates from where I grew up. But we'll cross there.
And that's a big thing, when it comes to like the black experience, because it's like you will hear people talk and like you can be in rooms, like I've had it happen where you could be in rooms and they're like, well, what do you think? And you're like, but I don't speak for the whole entire like like black race. Like my opinions are my opinions based off of, what I've seen and where I've been and where I've grown up.
Right.
Because like if you live in the city, you have a different experience than someone who lives in the suburbs.
Right.
If you live like down south, there's a totally different experience from if you live up north.
Totally different.
So it's like depending on where you live will really determine like how those interactions and those experiences happen.
Right. And there's even a difference in terms of experiences right within the same state that people live in. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there definitely is. Absolutely.
So as far as police, like this is a hot topic because like this is big right now. We're seeing a lot more of this because, we have the cameras. Everyone's whipping out their camera when they have these experiences when it comes to police.
Right.
So it's like, how have you ever been affected, profiled, anything, had a negative experience with police?
So I think most of my experiences with police, and I'll be honest, most of my experiences have been positive. And the negative ones primarily have been you get pulled over and there's a cop who just might be a little bit more aggressive than he needs to be, right? So I've had those instances. I don't really chalk those up to, he's treating me this way because I'm black. I just think that he's just on his high horse and he just feels that he's the authority figure and that's how he can behave.
That's
right?
usually me with troopers. Like troopers just seem like they're angry at the world. Right. And it's not that I don't like state troopers. I think they're amazing. But y'all just be angry for no reason.
And usually my response to them would be like, hey, listen, it doesn't call for all of that, man. I'm not a criminal. I have no intentions of trying to harm you, but it's just they automatically approach on the defense. And a lot of times those are my issues. But growing up for me, I always had a positive outlook on police officers, right? I grew up when the DARE program was up and popping, right?
Yeah, officer friendly, baby.
Yeah, man. You had police officers in your classroom. They're working with you. Shout out to Officer Whitey in Cambridge. Whitey worked in our community center, was our youth teen director for many years. Shout out to him. And then later became a police officer. And, so for me, my experiences with police officers were always positive, right? And to be honest with you, these are individuals, a lot of the individuals that I interacted with as police officers were Caucasian. And my experiences were positive. I didn't really have a negative experience. And through the DARE program, you're taught to see them as like superheroes, as respectable people, as honorable individuals.
Officer Friendly was the man.
Right. And so you have that. And so I don't necessarily think that every officer is the same, right? I think that there's people who wear the badge and they wear it for the right reasons. Their motives are right. Their intentions are pure. And so, I just think that there's different types of officers out there. Some are good and some are bad. And
that's the same thing with people.
Right.
Some are good and some are bad. And
right.
I'm gonna be honest, one of my lifelong goals and aspirations was always to be a police officer. I always admired that job. That was something that I was like, this is what I want to do. I was like, if I pulled out my yearbook right now, right this instant, senior year, 2003 in Westy, it'll say, aspirations to become a U.S. Marshal. It was, I kid you not. I wanted to become a U.S. Marshal. I always thought police, it was an admirable job. You chasing down criminals, because growing up you playing cops and robbers. You ain't playing no cops and robbers no more.
Nah, you're not.
It's different.
That's funny. You're really not.
You're not. You're not doing that anymore. These are big, but it was that for me, that was my dream career. I was I always wanted to be a cop. Then when, coming up and seeing my brother become a police officer, I was yes, I'm next. That's gonna be me. Because I always thought that was an admirable thing.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
you protecting the community.
Protect and serve,
right? And then as I got older, I still love the profession. Don't get me wrong. You see these instances, and then you start understanding where the origins of policing and stuff came from, and it can give you a negative light on it. And then with a lot of the things with laws and how they're kind of skewed,
correct,
and it kind of makes it harder for a career that you viewed a certain way, and then to see how it really does change your perspective on things. But for me, I think that was one profession I can be very, real about. Like, yo, I always wanted to do that. Yeah. Like, I went to school for that. I got my bachelor's in criminal justice because I was like, yo, I'm gonna be a cop, But like growing up in the inner city, it's like you have these instances where you will have run-ins with police. And for me, absolutely, I think my first negative encounter with a police officer, I remember I was hanging with my cousin and his friends, and we were just walking, like legit. We were just walking. There was like 4 of us, but we were just walking in Roxbury. We going to his friend's house, and a police car just pulled up on us, and we're like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Like, pull up, hop out. They're like, yo, where you going? It's like, what? It's like, yo, we're just going to his house. Now, like I said, I'm very naive about race relations, right? Anything. So I'm just thinking like, okay, this is another officer friendly. We good. But his friend, on the other hand, had instances where, these random stops weren't just like that. So he has an attitude. He's like, what are you stopping us for? Right. He's like, cops like, who are you talking to? And he's like, whoa. So now my cousin's like seeing like, yo, this isn't going to go good. So he's like, yo, calm down. Cause now, he's kind of, he's feeling it. He's like, yo, we're walking, minding our business. We ain't even doing nothing. And y'all just jumped out on us. So my cousin kind of diffused the situation with him, but then the cops like, he's like, you need to listen to your friend. And he's like, whoa, I'm like, hold up. I'm like, yo, hold up. Like, they really just stopped us for walking. Like, and then like when they finally get to the point where they're gonna like, leave us alone and let us go, cops like, yo, you need to keep that little puppy on a leash. I'm like, yo, this dude's like really like wilding. And I think that was the first time where I really looked and I'm like, yo, you could legit be like minding your business and like just get caught up for no reason.
Absolutely.
And I think after that, like just, it really made me look at things like in a really, negative way. But like that profession is still one that I've always wanted to do, but just seeing how, things have progressed right from, the time that I was, younger to now, it's just like, dang, it's kind of rough with that. And like, that's just like the first one. There's been like other times where it's just like, you just see where, like you say, you have like some cops who got that chip on their shoulder and, they'll straight profile you. They'll just see, you young and you black. Like, you must be doing something. Yeah. You ever been profiled? Stereotyped? Like, anything of that nature? It doesn't have to be by a police officer. I mean, like, in general.
Primarily, I think instances that I can recall is, like, in stores.
Oh,
right. Like
I love that, and
it's funny.
I love that one.
The funny thing is like I've experienced it in like corner stores, right? So you go in a corner store, and you walk in, and it's like you got this one, the owner's wife or whoever, and they're just walking around with, and I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna steal nothing. Like, why are you like following me through the entire? So like I've had those instances, and again, I'm not, I pride myself on being a respectable person. So I don't really, I don't pop off as some people would in those instances and would say something. I don't, because I'm not 100% sure why they're doing it, right? And there could be reasons. There's reasons why people do what they do, right?
That's true.
And I've learned to understand that. So for me, and not that it makes it okay, but for me, it's just like I have no negative intention. I have no intention of stealing nothing. I'm gonna pay for what I need to pay for. So you can follow me all you want to follow me. It is what it is. This is coming right up with me to the register, and I'm gonna pay for it. And I'm gonna walk out. I'm not in here because I don't have the money to get it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna go about my business. So, but those are the instances where I have experienced it the most.
That's funny because like I've the following around the store, like I swear, like I think that one is like probably one of the most common, that like the common denominator where you can walk into a store, and it doesn't. It's not a like select few people. It could be like, yo, you could walk into a black store and you will have people following you. But and I think, like you said, that can come from experience. Maybe they've experienced black people coming in their store just stealing stuff, and maybe it ain't even because you're black. It could be anything. They just like, hold up, someone coming in the store, they look suspicious.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that does come from, like you say, experiences. Because I remember walking in a Walgreens in the middle of Dudley. Now, I'm on break from my class and it's cold. I got on my Scully, Scully pulled down, beard looking all rough. I done just got 3 hours of just sitting in class and I got another 3 to go. And I walk in Walgreens and I go to the little soda like cooler in the back and I'm just sitting there. Now, when I walked in, I seen the security guard look at me. Like, and this was a brother. Like, yo, this was a black dude.
Yeah.
And I walked to the back because I know where my soda is, and I'm just looking. I was like, do I want Mountain Dew to try to stay awake, or do I want Dr. Pepper, because I like Dr. Pepper. Yeah, I like old people's soda. Not a lot of people drink Dr. Pepper.
Yo, love Dr. Pepper, man. Shout out to Dr. Pepper.
This is not a Dr. Pepper plug, but yo, I love that soda.
Yeah,
I love that soda.
I say the same, man. Ditto.
So I'm standing there and I'm just looking. I'm trying to figure it out, and then I get that, that little spidey sense you get. You're like, yo, I feel like someone's. Someone's watching me. And I look up the aisle. There's no one there. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going crazy. But then I look down the aisle, and here is the Walgreens security guard at the edge of the aisle, just kind of looking down. And I'm like, yo, is this dude really following me around Walgreens? It's Walgreens, bro. What is... And I'm like, so the store experience is definitely funny. But I think one of the most notable times, and this was crazy, I will never forget this. And I always mention this, when I talk to, especially like teenagers, when it comes to like really doing well in school. This one, because this one got me. So when I was going to UMass, I just got promoted as a security supervisor when I was doing security at the Prudential. So like there would be times where I would just have to miss class because I'd be pulling shifts, and things like that, covering hours. And then in this one particular class, I missed a few assignments and I missed like 2 tests. So I reach out to the professor, right? Professor don't know me from a hole in the wall. And I'm like, hey, professor, I need to try to find a time where I can make up this work, let me know if you could, give me a time where I could do it. And this professor emailed me back. I will never forget this. He's like, you're missing a lot of assignments. He's like, and honestly, even at your best, you're probably going to fail. I was like, what? Like, I read that email and I was like, this dude really just, I was shocked. Like, so I sent, like, I have a way with words that when it comes to like when people like kind of step out of pocket, I'm able to use words very effectively to tell people how I feel, and you don't have to be, you don't have to use profanity, you don't have to swear, because there's a lot of colorful words inside of the English language.
Got that right.
And you gotta know how to use them. So, so I sent this professor an email back, and I was like, I really feel like, you're making these preemptive judgments on me. I'm like, and you don't know me from a hole in the wall. I'm trying to find a way to make up the work that I've missed. I was like, and said a, few other, words to just let him know exactly how I felt about that. So then he gave me the time. I passed that class with a B+. I was like, even at my best, I'm going to fail. But it's like in moments like those, it's just like when because you can't tell who feels what about what, you can't tell what someone's thinking, right? So it's like in moments like those, when you don't know what you're dealing with, it gets kind of hard, to really think the best about everyone, because Absolutely. you just don't know.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can attest to that as far as within school. So I can recall transitioning to a new school, and I never forget my mom had a meeting with a particular teacher, or she was or maybe administrator at the school that I was attending at the time. She was having some dialogue about there were some concerns about my academic performance, and there were some things that she kind of said to my mom in that moment that, my mom was like, okay, she was a bit taken back because, again, like you said, you're not 100% sure where this is coming from or why these judgments are being made. And it was in connection to my future progress, right? And basically kind of putting this stamp that, okay, he's not going to get to here. So I was like, all right. And funny enough, my mom had a conversation with me about this years later, because there were things that she said that really stuck with my mom. And my mom didn't want to share those things with me at that time. It was in middle school. And again, not taking into account, right, I had just transitioned from a new school. I was in a new area. It was a new environment for me. So sometimes those things actually impact academic performance. And, my mom later in life talked to me and said, she came back to me years later. And I think by this point I'm in high school, doing really well in school, right? Honor student, doing really well. And she sees her in the grocery store.
Oh. That's the best.
She says to my mom, she sees her, and I don't know if my mom said hi first or even if she even addressed my mom. And if I remember the story correctly, I think it may have been more on my mom's side who kind of, acknowledged her or whatever. And, she basically was able to articulate to this lady, like, hey, listen, she asked about how I'm doing. My mom was like, he's doing this, he's doing that, and he's doing this. And the funny thing was her facial expression in that moment showed exactly what she thought about me years ago, right?
She was disappointed.
It was this utter shock that, you beat the odds, right? And it's just kind of like, yeah, I did, right? You thought this young black boy was not going to rise to the occasion to perform at a level that would allow me to be successful in my future. You were wrong.
Fooled you.
You know what I'm saying? So,
gotcha.
But I do think that there's a lot of, and I hear a lot of similar stories with, minorities. And this is not only just something that impacts black, but I've heard it from, Hispanic people as well. Like, there's a lot of times where you're going through school and there are these, and you're not 100% sure where it's coming from.
Yeah. But
they're looking down on you as if you can't rise to the occasion and as if you can't make it.
Even before you do anything, though. And that's the crazy part.
Exactly. Or even just the idea of if there is a period where there's underperformance, you automatically assume that there's something so wrong that's not going to allow them to rise to the occasion.
It's crazy.
So it's just a funny thing, man.
It's crazy. It's crazy because I look at like everything that's going on now, like with race relations in the country and, the police brutality. And we started talking a little bit about this last week. So I'm gonna ask you this question. And I want you to tell me, like, with everything that's been going on, I think where it really first started coming to light was like from Mike Brown to now.
Right.
Like,
right.
How do you think it's been affecting you?
So I think that there's a lot of emotions that come up with a lot of the stuff that happens, right? And it's funny, there's moments where, you see these things and it becomes so repetitive to the point where you see them, right? It's the norm, you just kind of, but then sometimes there's moments where for me, like, I'll sit in it and allow myself to feel, right? And I think sometimes this happens when there's like those interviews that go in a little bit more depth into some of these situations and interviewing family members, et cetera, and where in these interviews they're bringing to more light to who these individuals were, right, and what they were doing with their lives when they were cut down. Those are the moments when I have to be honest with you that there are certain emotions of like anger and frustration that rise up within me. And just this desire to really see change. And then the frustration or the anger that rises up with me that, like, why did this person think that this was okay? Right? So I can remember watching the video, I believe George Floyd.
Oh, gosh.
And I remember rewinding it, right? And every time I hit the rewind button and I watched it again, it was like a little bit more anger rose up, because the reality of it was that this was blatant. This was intentional. Like, you had no care in the world about this person's life. And I don't care what
chilling.
you say. Right.
Just chilling.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And then it gets you to start to watch some of these other videos, and it really does start to bother you. And I think for me, it really started to bother me to the point where I'm like, yo, this is really not okay. There is clearly a problem, and the problem needs to be spoken to and addressed without any compromise whatsoever. You know what I mean? And I think that that's a big part of where my frustration comes, because some of this stuff, there's no excuse for that type of behavior.
None
Whatsoever.
And I think like just like me being who I am and how I deal with emotions, like for a large part of my life, and I talk about this a lot. Me and Sheikah have these conversations all the time. It's like I would take stuff and I just kind of bottle it up, and you don't really you know talk about it. But like with like from the time that this stuff has really been coming out, it's like, you know, I know for me, I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous, you know, and I just feel like the anger, and you just feel the frustration, and then it's like you have all these range of emotions, and then it just seems like you just kind of like put it away, and then it happens again, and then you go through the cycle again, and you put it away. And I remember, I think this is the George Floyd thing. I think that was the one that broke me, bro. And I remember watching it, and it wasn't so much as seeing the act happening. That wasn't what got me. I'm gonna tell you, this is when I knew, like, yo, this stuff is really starting to affect me. It's like I seen the videos, I was upset. I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous. And it's like, I think the biggest frustration from the whole situations is the fact that people try to justify people taking someone's life. And when you see other situations that are a lot more dangerous, and you see people being taken alive, it really like shows you how people value your life. But that even wasn't it. That got me upset, but that wasn't it. I remember it was like maybe a week or two after, we're having a professional development at my job.
Okay.
They're talking about how to like direct conversations with students if they tell you like something like this happens, or you know, and they're having these scenarios. He's like, you know, what if your student comes in from school, and you know, and they tell you like, last night my uncle got shot, or like this, that, and next. And I'm like, I'm in this PD, like, I don't even know what happened. I'm sitting there. I got my camera off because I'm mad. Like, I'm angry because of everything that's going on. I'm angry because, you know, you're probably not going to get justice. We see time and time again where even when you got the cameras, it's like, it's still nothing comes of it. And now we're having these conversations, and I'm looking across the room in this Zoom meeting, and I see like, oh man, like, I'm looking, and I'm just kind of looking, and I'm seeing, I'm like, okay, like, who looks like me in this? And like, who, like, just trying to see, like, how is everyone else feeling, you know, with everything that's going on? And like, as sure as can be, it's like, outside of the facilitator, everyone who really has to deal with it, all the cameras are off. And it's like, and we're having these conversations, and I'm hearing these scenarios, and I'm like, you're not going to be able to tell a kid anything that's really going to justify like what's going on. And literally, I went from listening to this to just like bust out crying. Like, don't even know where it came from.
Wow.
And I'm like, yo, I'm like, and I was like, wow. Like, I'm talking like uncontrollably crying, bro. And I'm like, yo, like, this is legit crazy.
Yeah. And
sometimes we see it and we hear it, and we don't really know how deeply it affects us. And with that, I just want to pose this question. What do you think change will ever come? And if it does, how? Like, what are some of the things that would need to happen for change to actually take place as far as race relations in the country, and, you know, seeing actual equity among races of people, among rich and poor? Like, what is it going to take to actually see equity take place?
So I'll say this. For me, the number one thing is that these people that take these actions need to be held accountable. What kills me is when we can see blatant racism, and where we could see blatant actions that are taken against black people that's completely wrong in these instances by police who are to protect and serve, and they get a tap on the wrist, or they don't get anything at all.
Anything.
What bothers me with that is that there's no way that you're creating change by not holding these people accountable. And here's the crazy thing. Yeah, they may have been able to get off back in the day because we didn't have footage and we didn't have all these things, right? We may have known why some of the things happened, but there was nothing to show. In this day and age, when you have video cam and people could see physically what just took place.
From beginning to end.
Right. And then you find a way to justify what's just taken place. And these people get off with a tap on the wrist. And then there's other instances where things happen and people are being put away and they're experiencing the death penalty. And people of color, mind you. And then we come to these situations where these people get off scotch-free, or they do a little bit of time. My issue is that in order for there to be change, there needs to be justice. And there needs to be situations where these people serve the amount of time that they need to get, that these families get the justice that they need to get. And that's the thing where I feel like that's a start to change, is where these people are held accountable for their actions, right? I think that's number one thing. The second thing that I think about is we need to have leaders that are going to speak out and not tolerate this stuff in this country. And I think that that's a big thing, whether these leaders are black or white, whatever color they are, but that they take a stance and speak outrightly against what's happening, right? And so for me, I want to tread lightly here. One of my biggest issues really had to do with how our president responded to a lot of this stuff. And I feel like as the head of a country, right, where we value freedom, where we talk about freedom, we talk about equality and all these different things.
Freedom and justice, right? For all.
You can't stand in that post and not speak out against what you're seeing in our country. And say it without apology that this stuff will not be tolerated in our country. And if you can't do that, I got issues, bro.
You in the wrong position.
I got issues.
You in the wrong position.
Absolutely.
Because leadership really does just give you the climate, and you create the climate for the people who you are leading.
Absolutely.
And if you're not saying hey, yo, this is wrong, it ain't gonna be tolerated.
Absolutely.
Then it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. And I think the accountability piece is big. The accountability piece is big. I remember there was this case where a black cop in Minnesota shot this white lady and killed her. And I remember when this happened, right? I was like, oh, wow. I was like, let's see. And this is what I said. I said in my mind, I was like, let's see if this cop gets off the same way his white counterparts are. Right. And I said, let's see. I want to see. There was widespread news coverage when it first started. Yeah. But when it came time to conviction time, they never really talked about it as big as they did when it first started. Right. This cop got convicted of 12 years for shooting this lady. And it's not to say I want just, white cops to go to jail or, the fact of the matter is this: justice needs to happen.
That's it. And when it's wrong,
wrong is wrong. And that's when we talk about integrity. That's why I say, if we had more integrity, we wouldn't have half these problems. But I feel like when it comes to race relations in this country, I try to be hopeful, but I feel like there's always some sort of compromise. It's never going to be we're just going to, make it all right. And one of the things that I do believe is this. And this could definitely just shake the whole thing and get everything fixed easily. The people who benefit from the system, if they stand up and be like, yo, nah, this ain't right, we ain't tolerating this, we want change, that's the only way it's gonna happen. Right. And that's honestly how I feel, because it's when we protest, when we stand up and say like this ain't right and we want change, it's like somehow they find a way to villainize us and you shouldn't do it this way, you shouldn't do it that way. You see people like Colin Kaepernick, he was like, yo, I'm just gonna sit here and kneel. At first he was sitting. And then, his boy was like, yo, Colin, man, if you're going to protest this, he's like, do it this way. This is the right way to do it. And people like, oh, he hates America. He's anti-American. You're supposed to stand for the national. They was mad. My man ain't worked since.
And not that he's not capable.
No.
Or talented.
No.
Or gifted.
There are some trash quarterbacks right now that no. That he could easily step in and take their position and be like, take teams to championships. And they're like, nah.
He's blacklisted.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
You think you're going to work in this here NFL?
And if you're the owner or you're the coach that wants to take a chance on this dude, right? Or even bring him onto your team, you're not willing to take that risk.
Mm-mm.
But the reality of it is that, he's not saying I hate America. He's not saying I'm anti-America.
At all.
What he's shedding light on is that America has issues that we need to address.
But
and
they
we
don't
need
want
to face it head on.
They don't want to address that, though.
Right? But they need to.
But they don't want to.
They don't want to. It's true.
And that's the fact. Like, it's not a matter of, do we need to do this? There's a lot of things that they know they need to do.
Right.
But it's a matter of like, how is this going to affect the system we have in place?
Right. And that's where the reform needs to start. It needs to start with the system.
The system is broken.
That's it.
It needs to be fixed.
That's it.
Because if I have a car and I'm whipping in this broken car and I'm like, yo, but I'm gonna tint my windows. My car's still broke.
Right.
I'm gonna put some new tires on that, but my car's still broke. So until the car gets fixed, it's not gonna change.
And that's what we need to speak to, right? And that's what we need to rally around is change to the system.
Change the system.
So I think in a lot of ways what we're doing in demonstration is great, but then it just can't end there.
Nah, we gotta change the system.
We gotta change the system.
We gotta change the system.
That's it.
See, we gotta stop. Like, yo, we gotta stop. We gotta stop because this will be like an hour-long episode, and I don't know if they'll stay here for that. I don't know.
But listen, I'll say this last thing. And we didn't even touch on some of the stuff.
We didn't even touch some of the stuff.
And I'll say this for, and we're Christians, we're in the church.
Ooh, I think I know where you're going with this. Oh, please, go there.
I want to say this. We play a role as a church in that change. We play a role as a church in helping to change what's happening. And we may not, we may look at it, the impact starts in our communities, right? What we're doing locally. True. That's where it starts, right? Mm-hmm. And of course it trickles up. But I will just say this, that as churches, we ourselves need to stand up and be a voice, right? And it's not okay for us not to be. It's not okay for us not to speak to these things because we have a role in establishing and helping the moral fiber of our country. And
should be like that.
And we have to speak. And if we don't say anything, if we're quiet about all these things that are happening, believe it or not, I want people to notice, God ain't happy with some of the stuff.
Silence is complicitness.
He ain't happy, right? And we could point to these things in scripture to show that he's not happy.
Yo, who was the good neighbor, bro?
Who's the good neighbor?
Who's the good neighbor? Who was the good neighbor? Was it the one who helped or was it the one who walked by?
No, the one who helped.
And that's what it is.
Right. And everybody is your neighbor.
Yeah.
Everybody's your neighbor, right? Mr. Rogers. Will you be my neighbor?
Will you be my neighbor? Like, we gotta stop this. Like, we gotta stop this. But nah, really, this conversation too. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like, yo, thank you for tuning in. Yes. This is a little longer than we, planned, but like, yo, these topics is getting good.
They're good, man. Good, yo, comment. Continue on the comment section.
Comment.
Really, we gotta have this conversation.
I appreciate you coming for round 2. I kind of just snatched you up. It's like, yo, we gotta get back on this.
Nah, this is good stuff, man. And there's even stuff we ain't even touched.
We ain't even touched. There's a lot, So we thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for coming along. Definitely. One of these days we'll get the one and only back. she'll get her seat back. But these conversations have been getting really
She'll
good.
be back. She's
really
prettier than
good.
me too, so
like
they need her back, you know.
I love you, bro, but I love her a lot.
Right. She's a better compliment. Better together. You gotta get her back, man.
Better together. I promise you she's coming back. I promise you she's coming back. So, like, subscribe, comment. Don't forget to check out the books. We thank you again, D, for coming along. We're gonna have his information in the details of the episode. So if you like the shirt, grab a shirt.
Hit me up.
Grab a shirt. Support the move. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. And remember, death and life is in the power of your tongue. So make sure you speak life.
Speak life.
Speak life. Have a great week. We love y'all.